This is Montreal Now with Aaron Rand and Natasha Hall. CJAD 800.
That is James MENNIE over at the Montreal Gazette. And Jim, just before we sort of get into it, I did want to let people know if you're expecting friends, whatever, family coming back from Cancun today, you may have heard on our news at the top of the hour, Sunwing is having some computer issues. So flights apparently that were supposed to come back earlier in the day are still not back yet. So you want to just check before you run out to the airport for no reason. So that's Sunwing and Sunwing only. And we know that flight from Cancun has been delayed. I think we said on the clip at least 4 or 5 times so far today. Jim, let's start off with Dominic Anglade for 2 reasons. Number one, I want you to comment on her, I guess you want to call it her sexism issue here. And when I say issue, I mean this is what she's contending is an issue. And number two, she's going to join us tomorrow on the show right after 3 o'clock because, you know, in that open letter in the Journal de Montréal, she talked about reconnecting with Quebecers. So we're going to give her a chance to reconnect, and we will take calls from you, from listeners, for Dominic Anglade tomorrow right after the 3 o'clock news. But let's start off with this sexism issue. What do you think?
Well, it's going to be a good question to ask her tomorrow for sure, because, I mean, I read it, and, I follow the Canadian press reporter who wrote this interview with her. And, yes, of course there's a double standard for female politicians who get, if you're a guy, you want to make your point in politics, you're aggressive. You're basically heads on. You tell it like it is. If you're a woman doing precisely the same thing, you are shrill or whiny or, complaining. But my concern here is this is not unique to politics, and I think that Madame Anglade would know that. I think any woman who's listening to us right now in any line of work knows there's a double standard for women. It's not going away anytime soon. We don't like to talk about it that much. We like to, place these bandages of, gender-neutral speech or whatever. But, yeah, I mean, I would respectfully submit that if there is a female listener out there right now who doesn't get mansplained about something over the course of the next 4 weeks, maybe she's very lucky. But I'm wondering why she's raising that now. She uses it in juxtaposition as well with the character of Francois Legault. She describes him as paternalistic. And I think you don't have to be a woman to actually get that sort of impression. He is paternalistic to everybody. And as we've pointed out on the show multiple times, that, Francois Legault likes to be witty. He likes to tweet about what he's been reading, unless, of course, he gets contradicted or somebody gets up in his face over some ridiculous notion that he's trying to sell the public. Then he, with this very thin skin of his, he becomes very, very nasty. There's no other word to describe it. So, whether he's dismissing his critics as radicals or woke, or, he's clearly talking to a particular audience for whom these are buzzwords. But I'm once again, I'm still a little concerned as to why Madame Anglade would raise this. We know there's a bias, but we also know that, with all due respect to Madame Anglade, most of the problems being faced by her party, whether it was the election, the by-election defeat last Monday, whether it was the blessed end to this arduous self-inflicted torture over their gaffe amendment to Bill 96. It's got nothing to do with anybody's gender. It's got a lot to do with a party that seems to have lost its way. So yes, by all means, reconnect with Quebecers, but also understand one of the reasons that you may have to do that is whether it's your entourage, whether it's your predecessors, the Liberal Party has been doing its best to really rip out the wires of communication that it once had with a lot of Quebecers. And I'm not just talking about political allegiance here. I'm talking about your troops, the ground workers, the people who actually, the volunteers go out in elections, work for the Liberal Party. A lot of those people felt very insulted, very put upon. They almost felt like Anglos, Aaron, in the wake of the 2018 election because they were not being paid attention to, which is one of the reasons, one of the explanations for this historic and historically embarrassing rout suffered by the Quebec Liberal Party. So by all means, take questions. By all means, explain yourself in terms of these comments, but also by all means, please, tomorrow, don't show up and ask us what's our favorite color. Give us a reason to vote for you.
Can I ask a question?
Sorry, and I would ask the same question to any politician,
Sure,
regardless of their gender or party.
With respect to that open letter that was in the journal, I know this was a topic the next day, and I didn't hear what you had to say about this. This idea that she ran it there, but it didn't run in the Gazette, as if somehow this was a tactical error, an oversight. What was your take on that?
No, my take on that was simple pragmatism, and maybe it's an overdue dose of pragmatism. Our listeners know you're talking to a guy who's no fan of, how can I put it, the Quebec or stable of columnists who like to dictate government policy, but you can't ignore that the Journal de Montreal is the biggest circulation, the best read newspaper in Quebec. And it is also read by allophones, perhaps more allophones than anglophones. But if you want to get your message out, the Journal de Montréal is the way to do it. Certainly in an area where the polls suggest that things are getting wobbly. Would it have been, how can I put it, a little more respectful to have posted something in the Gazette, or in terms of an open letter? I mean, maybe we're going to get one. I don't know. I'm not in the office this week, but I mean, the fact that you're having this interview with her tomorrow, I find interesting. But let's face it, the bottom line here is, yes, she came out first to a francophone audience, because we all know, and we've mentioned this long before Madame Anglade was ever on the scene, francophones are what you need to win elections in Quebec, and that's what I presume she's in business to do between now and October.
All right. Look, I've heard so much of this tunnel in Quebec City. Yes, it's going to happen. No, it's not going to happen. Then there's a tramway happening. It's like Quebec City's become the center of the universe in terms of projects for this province. What's the latest on this? Because I have no idea what's going on.
Okay, so here's the thing, and you have to understand, it takes a special kind of politician like Francois Legault to have not one but two Moby Dicks in terms of things that he's chasing and things that he's railing against. First, it was the tramway, which I think had a price tag of, I don't know, maybe $7 billion, and it was unheard of, for a premier to start publicly criticizing what is basically a municipal public transit project. But it didn't stop him, and there was a section he wasn't crazy about. He made it clear that I'm not happy. You got bicyclists, you got cars, you got the tram, all in the same stretch of road. I'm not happy with this. And meanwhile, his cabinet, in an amazing coincidence, we're echoing what he was saying, Aaron, but also putting in, we're hearing people don't want this. And when they were asked, well, who's telling you they don't? Well, it's on our Facebook page. We're getting comments on our Facebook page, which isn't the most scientific way to sort of plan government policy. All that said, it looked like there was going to be a showdown between Legault and Quebec City's mayor over the tramway, because he said, we'll give you the green light, we'll give you the funding, we'll give you the decree to say you can go ahead with this, but there has to be social acceptability. In the end, he completely caved. In the end, there were no conditions, no strings attached. Okay, that's great white whale number one, ramming the Pequod from starboard. Now here comes the other one about to hit port. This is about the famous tunnel that you and I and Natasha have discussed in the past. It was going to be like $10 billion, 6 lanes, 2 stories tall, under the river, connecting Quebec City with Lévis. It occurred to someone, though, after this had been announced, this would be the biggest tunnel in the world. And in order to do that, engineers say you would need the biggest tunnel-making machine in the world. I don't know where it is, Aaron, but it's not around here. So that was the first thing. No one really thought about, can we actually do this? And then the cost overruns seemed rather high. And then it looked like there wasn't enough a place being given to public transit. Long story short, they decided to go with two tunnels in one, Aaron. There's not going to be one tunnel. There's going to be 2 tunnels. Each of those tunnels they'll be smaller. They'll each have 2 lanes, south into Lévis, 2 lanes north into Quebec City, for the low cost of $6 billion. A $4 billion flip-flop, Aaron, and I will bet you folding money between now and, I won't even say the election, between now and Victoria Day, you'll see that plan change again. Because, we've talked about it in terms of whether it's language policy or good Lord, planning the healthcare network. But once again, even with the tunnel, they were quite literally making it up as they went along. So To be fair, I've been going after the Liberals for the past week, shooting themselves in the foot. It sounds like Francois Legault may have his feet up on his desk and have a loaded revolver in his hand. Is just, maybe just toying with the idea of, what could possibly go wrong. Because there's already been 2 shots there. These have been embarrassing. And believe me, if the opposition and his critics are keeping this in their pocket for down the road, it's going to be even more embarrassing as you get closer to the election. That here we are talking about multi-billion-dollar plans, which, quite frankly, no one really thought through completely.
Jim, I will give you credit for invoking not 1 but 2 former commercials in there with Certs 2 mints in 1 and that low price, whatever that furniture store is in Burlington that you got that from.
Well, no, listen,
well done.
I would have thrown in a oui papa, but I couldn't really think of an appropriate metaphor with that. But it was way too much TV. But.
That would have been great. James MENNIE over at the Montreal Gazette. Thank you, Jim.
Adam, man.